Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our community updates. I think this is like our 9th one so far. We've had some great speakers in the past, but today we are extremely excited and honored to have Mr. Mike Miedler, President and CEO of Century 21, in the house with us today. Technically, he's in New Jersey, but he's in the house. So welcome, Mike. Just a quick background. Mike has been with the Century 21 system for over 20 years. Prior to becoming president and CEO, he was director of growth, right, Mike?
Yes, that's right, Steph.
Okay. And he actually was named our president and CEO last January in 2019 and has just not stopped since. A little bit about the company. Century 21 has been around for a very long time. I personally grew up in the brand. We are in over 80 countries worldwide with over 135,000 agents. So we are a force to be reckoned with. So Mike, one last thing. If anybody has any questions for Mike or for Joe in regards to the real estate market, what's going on, is now a good time to buy? Leave those in the chat on Facebook, and we'll do our best to answer them as we go. So Mike, welcome aboard, my friend.
Thank you, Steph. Appreciate having this virtual opportunity. It feels like just yesterday that I was in Fullerton with you guys live right there at your beautiful office, right almost in it doesn't get any more like epicenter of Fullerton than where you guys are at. And, I'm glad to be able to be here virtually with you guys today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Happy to have you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think, just to answer your question real quickly, I think now is absolutely a great time to buy. And let me tell you what I am hearing, not just, across this country, but around the world, right? And the reason I say it's a great time to buy is because I think we're in the process, a generational change in what real estate means to people, what it means to families, what it means to, the American dream, right? So I kind of joke around. I'm in my basement. I'm coming to you live from New Jersey, where I told you guys earlier, we actually have Southern California weather, which is fantastic. So I'm all smiles today. But, I'm here in my basement, which is now my home office, right? In the last 90 days, my basement has become my home office. My house has become the place where I work. Literally kind of 30 feet away here, I have my treadmill and my Peloton, so it's also become my gym. About 15 feet away, I have my table where I sit and eat lunch. It's become my cafeteria. Upstairs, my kids are being homeschooled, so it's become our school. And I think real estate is changing for everybody. Steph, you and I were just joking around about, welcome to the agrihood. There's so many people who are moving out to the country, to agricultural spaces. They're rethinking what they want out of their homes and what it means to be home a lot more than it used to be. And so, there's a lot of folks out there exploring the real estate industry. And I think, no better time to look at the market than right now. So, obviously with a lot of what's happened from a health perspective and the COVID incident that we've been in about for the last 90 days or so here, a lot has changed and it changes rapidly. So I'll just kind of give you a quick kind of overview of what the market was like at the end of April. And these stats are due to come out again at the beginning of next week. But NAR basically said that April year over year was down about 17% from a units perspective. But you got to remember that April was literally like ground zero for everything happening from an overall kind of economic perspective, real estate industry perspective, and health issue perspective. Yet at the same time, you had prices that were up for 98 straight months across this country at about 7.4% up year over year. And our biggest issue as a real estate industry right now is inventory, right? People right now, and I think you're going to cover this in a little bit, is people right now want to know, can I sell my home safely? And all of our great real estate professionals out there are following very strict rules and guidelines and codes. And I think you're going to touch upon that for the community here on what you guys are specifically doing. One, to allow people to sell their home safely or to even buy safely, to look online. And it's interesting because, what we used to use in the real estate world, open houses, NAR just reported that open house activity was down 54% from last year. Well, obviously so. People don't want to be traipsing in and out of houses, and putting themselves at risk. But as a real estate industry, we have changed. We're changing the way that we show homes, the way that we're using technology, the way that we're interfacing with our customers in order to engage and make the entire process safe. So I'm going to give you guys just a couple of quick points of what I heard. And NAR, as you guys know from a national perspective, is now tracking this literally on a weekly basis. So for the week ended June 7th, okay, pendings over the past 4 weeks as of June 7th rose 30 basis points. For the first time in nearly 2 months, there's now been an incline in year over year pendings, which is excellent news. And I think it's because when we went into this health crisis, we saw all this pent-up demand. We saw pent-up demand in our category overall. We saw 90 million millennials who are now starting families, having kids, looking for places to raise their newborns, and getting into the real estate market. So I'm not sure if you knew this, but in April, 36% of our buyers were first-time home buyers. That's up from 32% a year ago. Let me tell you something else. New listings were only down 15%. Again, I said we have an inventory problem. We've had an inventory problem across this country for quite some time, but at the end of April, listings were down 41% on a year-over-year basis. People are now getting back out there. We're moving in the right direction. We've employed a lot of safety measures as a real estate community, and things are safe again out there from the way that we're taking care of our clients, and we're starting to move in the right direction. Nationally, existing home sale prices, again, have been continuing to rise, and that's good news. But on the other end of it, guys, is that there is absolutely more purchasing power in our home buyers' pockets because of where mortgage rates are today. And I know that they can talk to you or any of the professionals at Century 21 Discovery about how much more buying power they have because of where rates are at today. And I think it's, again, a generational opportunity to buy a home where rates are at and what you can afford from an affordability perspective. So one of the other things is, if you are serious, and the buyers and sellers that are out there right now are serious about the market, things are moving fast. So homes are literally on the market for about 31 days and bam, are gone. I'm hearing stories across the country in some of our hotter markets across the Midwest. I'm sure you guys are seeing it in Southern California as well. Literally a home will come on market and have multiple offers over a weekend and be gone on Monday or Tuesday morning. So, the folks who are out there right now are serious. There is so much pent up demand that this market is going to continue to move. And I think the economy in general, from everything that I've heard, and the Fed put out some interesting stats this morning about where the market's headed in their eyes and in their view. And I think we're on our way to what NAR would refer to as a absolutely V-shaped recovery. Right. And what I'm hearing, Joe, as well, and I think you guys have seen this, is that markets like Pennsylvania and Michigan, where they went really hard into this and they consider real estate non-essential, as they come out and markets are opening up, houses are going on the market, like literally coming and going just that fast. So it's been fun to watch. It's an interesting dynamic. But again, if you don't know, real estate is basically about 20% of the GDP in the US. And we are responsible for not just economic activity that happens around a real estate sale, but we're also the drivers in the community for all things business. And that's why I'm so proud to be in this industry and part of the Century 21 brand. And Steph, like you grew up in the Century 21 brand. I always say to people, I've learned business from the Century 21 brand, but you've literally grown up in it.
Yes, I have. Happily so. Happily so.
Happily so.
So where do you see, you talked about the V shape, which I think everybody that I'm talking to, both on a national level and a state level, agree with that. Do you think there's going to be, I know the California Association of Realtors has adjusted their projection for what year are we in? 2020.
2020.
But they've also adjusted it almost on a week by week basis, and it's nowhere near as drastic as they had initially thought coming into this pandemic that we're in now.
Exactly right. And I think, that was the scary part, Steph, is that, there was uncertainty around this, and we didn't know, we as a real estate and literally, the economy in 2008 to 2012, when we went through that big global recession, it lasted a long time, and it hit our business really, really hard. And a lot of our real estate professionals who have been through these cycles, like Joe, like you, who've seen this happen before, everybody said, oh my God, what is going to happen here? I think, NAR has done a phenomenal job in helping politic and lobby on the Hill to get the CARES and the PPP Act installed for 1099 professionals in the real estate community. And I think, our government's done a lot of great things to basically kind of keep the economy moving forward. But to your point, we as a real estate business went in with very, very strong fundamentals. I think a lot of people were ready to have the best year that they've had in decades. And, that still remains true. I say this all the time, that as long as having a roof over your head is in style and in vogue, that our business is absolutely going to see the fruits of that, because, let's face it, we're the place where people have, some of they're raising families, they're making, memories that'll last a lifetime. I mean, it's everything starts and ends with a home. And I think shelter is so important to people right now. And that's why my opening comments were, look, as people rethink how they work and go to school and eat and, raise goats at their own homes, what they want out of their properties, right? So, I think we're in a really great space. And again, don't forget how much economic activity we move in the local community based on what we're doing by delivering that dream of home ownership every day.
And, if I'm sorry, let me chime in on that, Mike. And I agree with everything you said. And what we're seeing out here is a lot of multiple offers, like you mentioned earlier. But what's also coming back in is the escalation clause, to where, buyers are saying, I'm willing to pay $1,000 more than your highest and best offer up to a maximum of X. So there's a lot of that going on. But I also think that right now is your A team is in there as far as buyers and sellers. I mean, these are the folks that aren't testing the water. They're not doing any of that. They are serious, motivated, and ready to go, more than anything. And then what you said earlier about the real estate community, and I was at awe with our education system being able to pivot as well as they did, to go from in-classroom learning to online almost immediately. But what's really cool is that the real estate industry has done the same. Our ability to pivot has really, I'm blown away by that, with an industry that's reluctant to change a lot.
Well, I was going to say, you make a great point. I love the school system analogy, because, if you really think about it from a technology standpoint, whether it's real estate or government and schools, I mean, we're always like kind of last behind the curve and slowest to catch up. And I think it's absolutely moved our industry and even education forward probably light years in forcing us outside of our comfort zone. But to your point, the way that we've stepped up and adapted as real estate professionals, but even the governments and all of the surrounding ancillary businesses that have to be part of this transaction, which again, we as the real estate professional, the one at the center of it, who has to kind of, coach it and move it all along and is responsible for each part of that process, we've really done a great job in kind of moving things forward. And I think, a lot of that, Joe, is here to stay and is going to be even better for the consumer moving forward in that consumer experience.
Absolutely.
And go ahead.
No, I was going to say the one other thing, Steph, is, I always say this, and I don't, as you said earlier, we're in 84 countries, right? And we've seen a lot of, whether it's markets here in the U.S. or around the globe, who have gone into this in a different way, who've felt, COVID in different ways, like China, as an example, who was one of the first, or the first country into this. They, in the end of March, saw their top 10 cities come back to the same volume amounts that they saw in November before they went in. So again, I think real estate is extremely resilient, and shelter is so important to the human being, no matter where you live, that will always continue to be, lifting the economy out of any pandemic or economic disaster or anything else that happens. And so, I think we're in a good spot. And as Joe mentioned earlier, the people in it are not kicking tires. They're serious about buying and selling. So we've got to be really serious about how we service those folks.
So let's talk about service. You have taken our brand and totally made it about the customer experience. I would say before, because that is such a buzzword right now, before it became a buzzword. So what does that mean to you? What does a good, solid customer experience mean to you? And how can we get our agents to step it up to make sure we're providing that to the clients?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first and foremost, I appreciate you saying that, because we have been talking about the consumer experience as a brand for years. I mean, Joe will tell you this, but we, for 20 plus years, have been the first real estate company to actually measure our quality service to our consumers, right? For 20 plus years, we've had the Quality Service Awards, which you guys are very familiar with. I'm sure there's a bunch hanging around your office right now, but we know for a fact that the real estate professionals and the real estate companies who are intentional about the service they provide and score 90% or higher do double the amount of business that everybody else does. And I think it kind of gives you a runway in this business, right? I think real estate professionals, innate in all of us is the fact that we care about people. But when you service your client to a high degree, you're the one who's going to continue to get repeat and referral business, and it just shows. And we have so many extraordinary stories. I've heard so many great stories from some of the agents that you guys have and what they actually do for the client, right? I think what consumers fail to remember is that, from the time that we make an offer through the actual handing over of the keys, there's like 100 to 180 different steps in that process. And whether it's dealing with the mortgage company or the appraiser or the attorneys or the title company or anything else in between, it's our job as real estate professionals to really be the one who pulls that all together to make sure that experience goes the right way. And I think, we as a real estate, or we as an American public, we are willing to pay more for a product or a service as long as the experience is there. In fact, they say 73% of consumers can care more about their experience than they actually do about the price. And, I think you guys can all equate that to whether it's a restaurant or going on an airline or a visit to a hotel. I think we all feel the same exact way.
Definitely. So for the last basically 3 months, we've been, obviously stepping up our education, as has Century 21, as has our local association. The level of engagement is through the roof, which is fantastic. But as we return to opening up and California's lifting and we're moving through the stages that is required for us to not go back to normal, but go into the new normal, what advice do you have to agents that, as they're moving back in, and maybe they struggled during the last few months with getting their business up and running? What advice do you have to those agents to get back in the game with their head on straight?
Yeah, I always say three things, right? I think first and foremost is your attitude and just your mental clarity as a person, right? I think that every single day you've got to, wake up and approach this business knowing what drives you about where you're at, right? And I think a lot of it is serving back our communities and delivering that dream of home ownership, but really like deep down inside, why are you in this business? Why are you getting up and fighting the fight every single day? There's that emotional reason, that emotional connection, and you got to make sure that you keep that front and center of why you're doing this every single day. But I think to your earlier point, Steph, is that right now there's a little bit of uncertainty in the market. The reason NAR and CAR are constantly publishing new ways to do business and all the stats and metrics is because this uncertainty continues to change with not just the consumer, but for the real estate professional. And you've absolutely got to stay up to speed on your skills and your knowledge in this marketplace so that, one, you can safely service a customer, but two, so you can guide them through this process. And again, knowing where mortgage rates are at right now, knowing what inventory is like, knowing what the local sales prices are like in your local market for every segment of the population. So, I say this all the time, like for the last probably 10 years, the market has been kind of so red hot and the market continued to move forward that like almost anybody could do this business. And even consumers felt like, hey, I know what the market's worth. I followed on, this website or that website, but truly our value as real estate professionals has gone up exponentially because of the amount of skill and knowledge you need to have right now in this market to help navigate it for your consumer and to help deliver on that experience. So I think we've got to constantly stay up to speed right now. And as Joe said earlier, like the cream is coming to the top here. It's those agents who are really going out of their way, learning every single day and delivering to their consumer that are really stepping up and doing a great job for their communities.
100%. Or should I say 121%?
That you should.
Okay. So you touched on a lot about knowing your local stats and knowing what's going on in your market locally. Joe.
Yeah.
Tell us kind of what's going on in the Orange County Fullerton marketplace as right now.
I think that Mike has touched on a lot of what we're talking about, but just to reiterate, the rates are at an all-time low. I don't remember interest rates being this low in my entire life. And then last week, the Feds come out and say, you know what, we're not going to raise the rates at all for at least 2020 till 2022, if that. So there's a major commitment on their level to keep rates low, which is just amazing. And for guys like me, it's free money, to be able to go out and purchase a home. I also think that COVID gave a lot of people that are sitting in, in their rentals and they're renting, and they're thinking about, gosh, am I sharing a ventilation system with my neighbor? Is that, how's that working out? And, I think we would be better off if we did have our own home and, or condominium or townhome or something of that nature. So I think that is driving the market as well. But if you look at all properties in the area where Pacific West Association of Realtors manages, which is portions of LA County, most of Orange County, we've got there's a change of pending sales. Year to date, we're off about 30%. But closed sales, if you look at year to date, are down 15% in those areas. The amazing thing that you want to think about is how strong this market was going into COVID. Because what we're looking at from May was off about 50%. Now that's a dramatic number. But when you look at year to date being at 15% off, that's how strong we were going in and how strong we are coming out of this thing, and the results of what May is doing and moving into June, July, August. And really, there was a guy out there who said, May is the new January. So we're working on that. Median sales prices are up 7% year over year, and average sales price is up 5%. So you start looking at those points and what prices are doing, that they are going up. And now is a wonderful time for a seller to enter into the market. He's not competing with everybody else that decides to go on the market at a later point in time. Like you said, Mike, the prices are coming in. And if you look at sales price versus what the list price was, we're operating right now at a 98.4%. So if you listed something for $100,000, it would sell for $98,400, and that's a high number in this market, given any market. So that's what the local market is doing. Go ahead, Steph.
I was going to say, and both of you have touched on this throughout our chat, but I've gotten so many phone calls from just within the last 2 months from millennial buyers, and they are wondering, is this a good time to buy? And I think both of you have hit the nail on the head, or hit it out of the park, whatever you want to say, is absolutely, between the interest rates and even the pricing, and the question that, when people are trying to interpret the market themselves, and not utilizing and relying on their trusted realtor, it's I think the prices may go down. I think the market might crash, and there's absolutely zero signs that are pointing to that. All signs are pointing to continuous price increases over the next couple of years. So if you're on the fence, let's get in the ball game and find a home.
Yeah, I mean, Joe. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry,
Mike. I got to tell you, Steph and I were talking about this just last week, and especially after the Fed made their announcement, I really believe this is the opportunity of a lifetime, and a better opportunity I've ever seen in over 40 years in the business. And for a buyer to be able to capitalize on that, I mean, it's going to be they're going to be bragging about their home ownership for the rest of their lives, and B, they're going to be bragging about their interest rate for the rest of their lives. And And then let's face it, majority of people's wealth is in their real estate. My mom, who's 90, in her 90s right now, I'd hate to think that if her and my dad hadn't owned real estate, it would have been, a mess. But
Absolutely right.
that keeps them going,
Absolutely right. And Joe, you touched on, you said, hey, look, our marketplace is up 5%, right? And from a country perspective, we've been rising for literally 98 straight months. So, and next year, NAR, Fannie, Freddie, MBA, they all think that 2021 is going to continue to rise. In fact, they think it's going to be a much better real estate market than 2020 is. And so to your earlier point, I would sit down with a real estate professional right now. So I'll just tell you guys something. I refied my house here that I know I will be in for at least another 5 to 7 years when I put my kids through school. But rates are at a spot where if you talk to your real estate professional about what you can afford, that 5% increase, what have you, right now where rates are at, you're talking about saving hundreds, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime of a loan in 30 years, even 20 years for where rates are at right now. So I think you're absolutely right. It's a generational opportunity here. And again, it goes back to people need and want shelter because so much of their life, especially right now, and I think going forward into this new norm, as Stephanie said, is going to be wrapped up in their homes.
Yeah.
So, Steph, can you let us? You got another question? You got more?
Well, there's been a couple of things that Mike said that has led me to my next question. So I'm just going to ask it. But Mike, I asked this question to almost everybody that we've interviewed and had on this show. But once COVID hit for the last 3 months, your team has had to kind of totally transform how you guys are operating. Granted, a lot of times you guys are out on the road anyways, but what would be like 1 or 2 things that you guys have, been forced to adjust over the last few months that have been super successful and you can see yourself implementing in how you operate your business moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just give you a quick example of what we're doing right here. I mean, let's be honest, right? I mean, the last time I was with you guys was, outside of in LA at 121, right? Was in your backyard where I was staying at the Fullerton Marriott and, traveling up and down and had to get on a plane in order to have the same conversation. And I think, this is something I've been able to touch and have conversation with so many professionals across our Century 21 system, not just from New Jersey to California, but from New Jersey to China, from New Jersey to Spain, to Portugal, to Mexico. So it's been a real opportunity for me to do a lot of business this way. Now, I yearn for and can't wait for the day to be able to sit down with you guys and have a lunch together again, right? I am a human being and I crave that social interaction. But at the same time, I mean, I've become really, really efficient and effective in this medium. And I've talked to hundreds of real estate agents who, might be traveling the busy roads of Fullerton, California from one side of, the city to the other. It takes an hour to get there and back to the office in order to make a listing presentation. And they're doing it just like this over Zoom in a virtual environment and still doing business. So, I think as Joe said earlier, we've really pushed ourselves outside of our comfort zone and figured out new ways to be effective and efficient through technology and be able to conduct business in a way that we never have before. So I think it's just these little kind of simple things, Steph.
And it's totally the simple stuff. It's not like Zoom came about because of COVID, but it's just that, being forced to have those.
I was wigging out with FaceTime on the phone, totally uncomfortable. I don't want to do that. That's just weird, right? And then once this jumped on, it's like no better communication way at this point, unless we're, of course, face to face. That's always the best.
Yeah.
So, Mike, you've also, mentioned that you are getting some more opportunities to speak to our international affiliates. And what's going on internationally? What are they seeing in their marketplace on a global?
Yeah, so I think it's the same here in the U.S. Steph, is that the ones that went really hard into this, like China, like Portugal, like the U.K., when things started loosening up and you got the health issue under control, like we have in a lot of the major states across the U.S., things really have sped up and gotten back to normal. So, I think we're a resilient economy and a resilient industry that, again, people need us. They need housing, they want housing, and it means, as I said, a lot more than it has in the past. I gave you the China example. I mean, they're back to where they were pre COVID altogether. So I think it's been a good news story all the way around. We just got to make sure that as real estate professionals, I know you're going to talk a lot about this topic, but as real estate professionals, we're doing it with safety top of mind, right? Because the last thing we want to do is put ourselves, obviously, or a consumer in danger. I'll tell you just a quick story. You're going to like this one. I talked to one of our top Century 21 agents here in New Jersey, a guy, Harry Mesh, and he's an older gentleman. He's in his mid 70s, and he said to me, "Hey, look, I'm still doing a ton of business." He took 17 listings last month, and he basically said to me, like, I'm not going to people's houses and visiting with them. I'm doing it all virtually and online, and then somebody from my team will go, or they'll get pictures sent from the consumer. And so he was going up against one of the top agents in the marketplace, and the homeowner is a big sale, million plus, and they said, "Hey, you got to come to my house to visit and see the property." He said, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to put you at harm. I'm not going to put myself at harm." He said, "Well, one of the top agents, so-and-so, said the same thing, but when we told him he has to come here to get the listing, he came out." He said, "Well, I'm not coming out, and I'm sticking to my guns, and who would you rather have negotiating for you when we're in the middle of a bidding war, me or him?" And so he wound up winning the listing, but not even going. So, there's definitely a new way to do business, and we can all do it, but we just got to do it safely.
And that's key. And moving just from a California standpoint, because every state is different and every county is different. Like I know our friend Adam in Michigan, he had a heck of a time because they were considered not essential. And, luckily in California, we were always essential. But we still, are being mandated by the state for a lot of different things, not even like association wise. It's the government that's saying what we can and cannot do. And
I think, Steph, that's why it's important to deal with a real estate professional like you guys who are so up to speed on government regulations and what's happening, not just in your local market, but even if you're buying across county, because those rules could be different.
Yeah, in Orange County to LA counties, different rules too, and we neighbor a lot of LA County cities. But open houses, we still can't do open houses. So, some states across are seeing a 50% drop in open houses, or nationally, we're seeing a 100% drop. We should be. But yeah, open houses are a huge no-no. Just reminding everybody to go see the virtual tours. Masks are still required. Cleaning the house in between each and every showing is a requirement right now that we're seeing as well. So it's real, and monitoring the amount of people going through the home. And so, California Association of Realtors has done a fantastic job of digesting everything that Cal OSHA and the government has put out, and has made some great, they call them guidelines, but they're really the mandatory rules we have to follow to make sure that, not only are the real estate agents safe and healthy, but first and foremost, our clients are. And that's through the proper channels that, we've been pushing out for the last couple months just to make sure everybody's okay. So, Joe, what else?
Well, I think that just to focus in on that, and then I want to get into more of the specifics on that stuff, which is, we're doing a tremendous amount of virtual open houses, virtual showings, and it's just, and our ability as practitioners has really increased to be able to do those open houses. I mean, if you can do a virtual open house over in Fullerton at 10 o'clock in the morning and run that from 10 to 12, and then you can go over to Brea or another side of town, Fullerton, and do another one. it's really increased our effectiveness as that. And you can't put signs out, you can't do anything, so you're just basically moving from one spot to another. And we've really been able to assist each other in the office and getting folks to be able to do that really, really nicely. But what I'd really like to find out from you, Steph, is the California Association of Realtors is really, and you talked about it earlier, has really pivoted nicely and put in a lot of protection forms, addendums, all this stuff that we've got to get taken care of before we can do anything. And it's really to protect the client, the buyer, the seller, ourselves, the
we've got
appraisers. So go ahead.
Yeah, one of the mandatory forms that came out, and this came out, very early on, I think maybe a week into everything. Yeah. Again, we were always considered essential, but one of the mandatory forms is a property entry advisory and declaration, to where every single person going into the property, regardless of who they are, so if it is a home inspector, if it is an appraiser, if it is an agent, needs to fill one of these out, essentially acknowledging that they don't have any symptoms of COVID. Sellers are filling one out as well. But it's little things like that, forms that are just, everybody says it, disclose, and you'll be fine. And that's really what we're being forced into in such a positive way. I say forced, but in a good way, to where it's beneficial for everybody. There's a whole bunch of forms in the library of CARs related to COVID, just there to address issues. Or what if you're in escrow and you either maybe lose your job because of COVID and you can no longer afford a loan, or you are put on sick leave because you have symptoms of COVID. There's all these forms that are designed to assist the consumer and making sure that they're never like stuck in something that, of this unforeseen pandemic will kind of put them into the corner. So it's, the consumer is very protected these days if your realtor is using the correct forms. So that's a mouthful.
Nice. Well, it is a mouthful. Very well said. So what else, Steph? What else is going on in the market today that you see? We're getting, and Mike, you said it earlier, the V curve getting us out of this thing, and we're seeing the results of that right now. And it's just, if you're in that marketplace, it's just like, it's a long, and I think home ownership is not an investment. It's a place to build tradition. It's a place to be. It's a place to build equity. It's a place to where, you celebrate the holidays together, the Thanksgivings, it's tradition and all of that. Your investments is a separate bucket. That's in another bucket. It could be real estate. It could be whatever, stocks, bond, whatever. But, your home is just truly, and you're either going to pay your own mortgage or somebody else's. You might as well pay your own.
Yeah.
I think the point that Steph made earlier was, sorry, Steph, but whether it's knowing your market and what's happening from a statistical standpoint and an affordability standpoint, or more importantly, how to keep people safe standpoint, you got to go to somebody who's trusted and knows the community like your best real estate professional. So I think that's a great point that you were trying to make.
Thanks. You said it way better than I. It's like stumbling through it, but it's true. We have talked about the cream of the crop, and it's so, I'm not going to lie, it's very difficult to stay up to date on all these constant changes as our entire country, entire world are figuring out how this is going to shake out and what it's going to look like. Everything from the school system to, what you can and can't do at a grocery store. So, it's staying up to date and staying knowledgeable. People ask me all the time, new agents will come in and sit down and ask constantly, just like they ask you, I'm sure, what do I need to do to be successful? Not only is it having a good ethical core, but it also comes down and taking care of your clients, but it simply comes down to being the most knowledgeable realtor out there, and that comes with stats, that comes with, all the constant changes and staying up to date. And is it excessive right now? Yeah, it really is. But it's that stuff that you need to know. So your clients, again, it's all about the consumer, that your clients are confident, even though they're filling out 10 extra forms right now, but they know that they're filling them out for their safety and for the safety of others, and that you are the one to guide them through the transaction from start to finish and then beyond. So
exactly. Like you said, the consumer experience.
yep, that's all it is.
So
Joe.
if we look at Fullerton just for a second and just focus in on that central North Orange County area, our pending sales year to date through May, so this is really recent activity, is off 5%. Closed sales are up 4.5%. So that's year to date through 5 compared to last year. Our median sales price is up 6%, almost 6.5%, and the average price is up 5.3%, and that's on single families. If we look at the condominium townhouse, our pending sales are off about 7%, and our closed sales are up 2%, and sales prices, median is up almost 7.5%, and average is almost 6.5%. And I like average better than I do median, because average seems to be a better number for me, just mathematically. But it's pretty amazing how the market is not only rebounding, but everything that's, the economy in general, the stock market, you look, the only thing that's going down that's really, really, really good are gas prices.
Yeah. Well, hey, Mike, any last words that you would like to share with anybody that is watching, either consumer, agent, or both?
Yeah, I mean, I think from an agent perspective, I think, make sure you're, again, to your point, staying up on what's happening in the market, whether it's the metrics Joe was just talking about, or how to safely, ethically, and legally conduct business, because the last thing you want to do is put you or your consumers at risk in any way, legally or from a health perspective. So that's absolute. And then number 2 is, as Joe said, like, just get out there and work, get out there and stay in contact with consumers, with home buyers, with home sellers. The people who are out there right now are very serious about transacting business. But there's also a lot of people who are probably on the fence, who might be thinking about it, who, want a different home gym or home office. Like, I just heard my dance studio upstairs pounding on the floors here. Like, I could use a different home office, and if the right one came along, maybe I'd be interested. So make sure you're staying out there talking to home buyers and sellers and doing the activities every single day. Don't pretend this is a snow day or vacation. Keep at it. As Joe said, the back half of the year, or maybe it was you, Steph, I think June, July, August will be our new spring selling season, if you will. So stay after it. We're going to have an awesome end to the year. And then from a consumer perspective, I'd say, again, make sure that you're working with a real estate professional who gets it, who understands all the guidelines, who can, because consumers have 3 questions right now. What's my home worth? What kind of affordability do I have from a mortgage rate perspective? And can I do this safely? And if you stay with the right real estate professional, they'll use technology and their ability to Sherpa you through the process, because they've done this a bunch of times, following what Stephanie said are the guidelines for each state or county, in order to make sure that you do it safely. So again, it all comes down to that experience and what we're providing as real estate professionals.
Definitely. I do want to know what a snow day is, though. I'm not.
You guys don't have them there, right?
No, but it's definitely not a vacation time by any means. And I'm so, so proud of our Century 21 Discovery agents, because they just have been pushing through and being more involved than ever. So if you guys are watching, you guys rock. So thank you. Joe, any last words from you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Mike and everybody out there, I don't know what I would do if it wasn't for, Stephanie and being my partner and our chief operating officer. And she's been able to, she really took the reins at getting us out front, then there's 2 levels, somebody had to stay behind and run the company. And then somebody had to get out there and really figure out what are the changes coming at us? How do we communicate and cascade that information down to our agents and the folks that really are putting it together? and just relentlessly doing that every day. And I mean, we got to the point where, oh God, can we talk about something other than COVID? And we had our sales meeting last week, and we spent the majority of it catching up on all the stuff that was not COVID involved. So Steph, hey, thanks. Nice job. You've really kept us. I really believe that she has kept us way far in front of the crowd as far as that information is going. And then the ability of our realtors at Century 21 Discovery, who really latched onto that and are using it to their ability, to the best of their ability. And, you know, that really gives all of us great confidence and really gets back to the consumer and our customer and client again, which is they really are the most important thing in the whole transaction, period. And we're able to provide that and give them. And then it's like we tell them, you know, you don't have to know everything about this particular form, but if you know this thing exists and you know that there's something important about it, you can always pick up the phone and call Steph or me, and we'll answer that question for you, and it's there. So Steph, thanks. Nice job.
Joe, you know what you said, and I've been saying to everybody, is that great leaders communicate, they add certainty, and they bring confidence. And certainly I know Stephanie and you both do that for your entire community, not just your real estate professionals, but all of the people throughout the community in Fullerton. So thank you guys for everything you do.
Well,
thanks, Mike.
Our community is the most important thing to us. And speaking for me personally, I like to run fast. So you give me a challenge and I'll just keep running with my blinders on and keep going. So,
gazelle.
Or an awkward giraffe. Either one is fine. Alrighty. Anything else from either one of you guys?
I'm good.
That's it, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you guys, and it's always a pleasure. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you guys so much. And thanks, Mike, for spending your afternoon with us. We appreciate your time.
Charge on, guys.
See
Charge
ya.
on.